Anyway, so we're going to start. Thank you, everyone. And it's good to see some good friends and some of our board members and some of our Taub people and some new faces and names. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you, some of you, for the messages that you've been sending us, concerning messages over the past 48 hours. That means a lot to us. And that's why also we decided to, invite whoever can join us today and hear a little bit how we're doing and what's going on here in Israel. I'll just say that what Miri said before, that we are obviously under attack. So if there will be the warning sign for the coming of the sirens, we will have to we'll continue until the sirens start, and then we will end the session. But hopefully it will remain quiet as it has been for a few hours since the afternoon, I think, or the morning. So today we're going to hear from Avi and a little bit of what's happening, the current situation, some data, some of the effects that this particular attack or war is going to have in Israel on the economy. And then we'll hear from Miri, of course, who will give her expertise on the situation today. And then we will leave time for questions. So I am turning it on to Professor Avi Weiss, for those of you who don't know, the president of the Taub Center.
Okay, so hi everybody. I think yeah, you should be hearing me. It's a pleasure to have you all here and to have you with me. Not under these circumstances, but still, I'm glad to see so many familiar faces, and as Miri said a second ago, some new faces. I'm going to share a presentation, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be breaking my discussion into two parts. One's going to be to basically show you what is going on. Just tell me if you're seeing the right screen, or I have to switch it.
It's
Um,
fine, Avi.
we're good? Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what it is that's going on, and I'll give you some data, some information, and then talk a little bit about the macroeconomic consequences of what is happening. So we're going to do this quickly. Most of you know the center, probably almost all of you, or maybe all of you. So I'm not really going to talk about it, but these are the basic fields of what that we cover and the information that we cover. But that's not the topic of today's talk. So we're going to just zoom past this. That was a joke. Okay, I didn't mean it. So I'm going to go now and talk a little bit about what's been going on. So we started receiving missiles into Israel yesterday morning. A little bit after 8 o'clock is when first, it was about 8:13, if I remember correctly, is when it first happened. And what this is showing you, it's showing you the number of sirens within every hour since that time. And this takes you all the way to to 5 o'clock today, to 6 o'clock today. And what you see is that there are periods in which there is quiet, and there are periods in which there is a lot of non-quiet. Now you see numbers like 4,000 there. That doesn't mean 4,000 in one place. That means Israel is divided into many different areas. And 4,000, I live in Petach Tikva. Petach Tikva has a number of different areas. Each one would appear in those 4,000. So if there are sirens in Petach Tikva, they would appear in all those areas. But you can see a lot happened right at the beginning. You can see that on Shabbat, on Saturday afternoon, in these hours over here, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, all the way up until about 7 o'clock, you were having a lot of sirens, and they were going off one after another. You're generally told to stay in the safe room for 10 minutes. We would stay in for 10 minutes, go out, and 2 minutes later we would have to go back in, and that was happening over and over again. Then the night came last night. At about 10 o'clock or a little before 10 o'clock, there was a lot of sirens in a lot of places, and we had to go into the safe room again. Then there was some quiet for the most part. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, after they let you, just get enough sleep to be really tired, we were woken up and had to go back into the safe room. Then it went off again at 6 o'clock this morning. Again, sirens throughout the entire country. And then again at about 10 o'clock. And you can see that what Michal told you, but we haven't had a lot of sirens since about 1 o'clock. We're in the north at about 4 or a little before 4 o'clock, but there's been a few hours of quiet since then. We hope that it lasts at least until the end of this meeting, and maybe through the night if we could really do that. When you take a look at where they are going and how many there are, So you can see that a lot of it, most of it is, or the heaviest places have been in the center of the country. As I said, I live in Petach Tikva, together with a bunch of other places around us. We've now been in and out of the safe room 33 times in basically a day and a half. You can imagine that that's quite a bit when you have to go into the safe rooms. And you can see that the numbers in Jerusalem have been smaller, the numbers in Haifa have been smaller, and in Beersheba even smaller than that. So those are the numbers until 6 p.m. tonight. Um, couldn't get you until 7 p.m., a little bit too fast. Now, take a look at the number of people who have been killed. And what you see, the bars on the left, the lighter colored bars, are what happened the last time we had the war with Iran, what they call the 12-day war. And you can see every day and where how many people were killed. So altogether, there were, if I remember correctly, 29 people who were killed in that period. I could add it up. I think that's the right number. And now we had yesterday one person who was killed in Tel Aviv, but today there was a direct hit on a safe room, and that in that direct hit on a safe room and all the damage that happened around it. In other words, it was a rocket that was not shot down. 9 people died, and there were many, many, many injured. And from what I just read, there are also 11 people still missing that they have not been able to locate. So we don't know what the final number is going to be from that. But that's a terrible, terrible occurrence that happened in Beit Shemesh today. You can see how many people are hospitalized. Yesterday, 384 people were hospitalized. Today, so far, 381 people have been hospitalized. Again, this is only until 6 p.m. tonight. You have 174 people in the hospital currently. We have another 134 who are in emergency rooms. And you can see that most of the people who end up in the hospital come in with a light injury. They don't come in with a very serious injury. There were 11 in critical condition and 31 in moderate condition. And of course, there are also those who came in with anxiety-related injuries. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but my feeling is, if I remember correctly, the amount of anxiety-related injuries is actually lower than it was last time, because we've already been through this once, and we've been through this for 2 years. So therefore, I think people are unfortunately more used to what it is that's going on. When you take a look at what happened, so the picture on the left that you can see running there, that's the picture from the hit in Tel Aviv yesterday, the direct hit in Tel Aviv yesterday, and you can see the damage that happened to that home. And if you take a look on the right, this is Beit Shemesh today. This is where we had the 9 people killed and so many people who were injured, and that's what happened. What happened today. And as you can see, the sites are really, really quite scary, because it really is scary what's going on. And the amount of damage that these missiles coming from Iran can do is really incredible. We saw that in June, and we're seeing it now also. And this isn't over. This is going on, and we don't know how long it's going to last. So that's part of what's happening inside of Israel, and you can just see what's going on. If we continue, because I want to leave as much time for Miri as I can, because I want to hear her, just like most of you do. We take a look at what's happening. Half of Israelis don't have a safe room in their homes. In other words, we have a safe room in my home. As some of you heard Miri say a couple of minutes ago, Miri does not have a safe room inside of her home. So when there are alarms, and if she's at home, she has to go out of her house. She has to walk over to a public safe room, to a public shelter, and be able to go into that public shelter and wait there. I don't have to do that. I could just go down the stairs to the next floor and be able to go into my safe room. But you can see that about half the people do not have their own safe rooms, even now. It's far more have them now than it had in 2018. But you can still see that not everyone has it. Many don't really have a shelter nearby. And if they don't have a shelter nearby, then they are not protected, and they are in danger in times of a missile strike. If we take a look at who it is that is vulnerable, who it is that does not have a safe room, then you can see that depends on how well off you are. The people who are better off are much more likely to have their own safe rooms. The people who have lower incomes are much less likely to have their own safe rooms, and that makes a lot of sense. And that is just the way it is within the population right now. If we take a look at what is happening with the education system, the education system really is not prepared to protect students. We saw that in June, and we see that now also. What you're seeing here in the picture is a picture of a school that was hit in June, is a school in Bnei Brak in June, and it was very, very badly damaged. And when you take a look at the schools in Israel, 15% of them do not have any shelter at all. And therefore, the children are at risk if they're at school. And 21% of them only have partial protection, which means they won't have room for everybody, for all the students, or they have very low level of protection. And that's what's going on inside of, with respect to those numbers. If you take a look at what's happening with Israelis abroad, so there are 110,000 Israelis, more than 110,000 Israelis, who have so far been unable to return to Israel. Now we know that the Israeli the El Al and Arkia are both mobilizing in order to bring people back to Israel, but it's going to take a little while until that can all be done. And I just saw a story about Dubai, where in Dubai the government turned to the hotels that are housing the Israelis who are stuck there and told them, keep them inside your hotels, and we, the government, will pay their bill, which is very, very nice of them to do that. So a drop about macroeconomic expectations, because as the caveat says here, there's not much we can say at this point. We're only a day and a half into this, and so therefore this is going to be a lot of guesswork. So it's preliminary, and I could be way off. So let's just give a try based on what happened last time, what we expect could happen this time. So the expected cost of the war is basically as follows. So in the 12-day war that we had back in June, the cost was about 20 billion shekel. That's about 1% of GDP. And that's what it cost last time. That was the direct cost of the war. There were also indirect costs of the war, but the direct cost was that. And that's reasonable to think that this might not be that different from it. As I said, I can't know for sure that that's what's going to happen. We don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know how intense it's going to be, but it's not far off from what we sort of expect might happen. It might be similar to that. When we take a look in addition to that, we talked about indirect costs. There's property damage. So in the last time, the Weizmann Institute was very, very badly harmed, about 1 billion shekel there. The hospital in Beersheba was harmed. That was also about 1 billion shekel. The refineries in Haifa were harmed. I don't know an actual number on that. But when you think about it, all of it together, you're talking about, with all the homes that were damaged, that were destroyed, you're talking about 5 to 10 billion shekel of damages. I don't know what the numbers are going to be now, because again, we don't know how bad that's going to be. We don't know what will be hit. We don't know how many will be hit. So it's very hard to put a number on that. But in addition to all that, there's all the people who were called up to the army. Now, there are different numbers flying around. The latest number I saw is that there are about 100,000 reservists. I saw a number yesterday that said 160,000 reservists. But not everybody who's called up to reserve is in the labor force. They're not all working. When people are called up, they obviously are not in their jobs. And therefore, that causes harm to the businesses. It causes harm to the reservist who is not working in his job. It causes harm to the economy because things are not being made that need to be made, or not being done that need to be done. So therefore, those are additional costs, not direct costs, but they're indirect costs. And if you're talking about 100,000 people, usually it's somewhere around 50% of them are actually in the labor force and about 50% not. Why are there so many not in the labor force? Well, many of them are very, very young. Many of them are in college. So they're not actually working at the time, but they are studying. This harms their studying and pushes off their studying, but still it's not the immediate type of expense that you would have. And to basically just put a wild, guess of a number. So I figured, let's say about a month. We've got about a little bit more than 1% of the labor force. Thinking about a month, that's about a 12th. But when you think about the quality of the people who are being taken, these tend to be relatively young people, but people who are coming to a large extent from high-tech type of industries with a lot of very, very good education and very important jobs. And many of them are being pulled out of their jobs and pulled into the army. And the result of that is it's not necessarily proportional. So I put a round estimate of about 0.25% of GDP, even for just a month, of those people being out of the labor force. It could be lower, it could be higher. Hard to put a very, very hard number on it. But when you add all of that together, you're getting a very, very rough estimate of about 30 billion shekel. which is about 1.5% of GDP. Obviously, this affects your level of GDP. It also affects your growth. You're going to have going forward. So these are things that are this is very, very costly. So it's not that it's a cheap war, it's an expensive war, but obviously it's something that you need to do. And for my last slide, I'm just going to talk about a potential upside because we all want to think what the potential upside is. We all are looking at this attack and saying, this is something that obviously needed to be done. So let's take a rosy view of it for a moment and see what it is that could happen. So the first thing is to start off. We know that Israel has been having an immigration issue over the past few years. We know the number of Israelis who are leaving the country has increased. This is not only people who moved to Israel from the Ukraine-Russia war, it's also people born in Israel. More of them have been leaving the country. This is during the war. It started actually before the war, but certainly been during the entire period of the war. And in addition, we know that when we look at who it is that's leaving, there is some show that it's disproportionately young people, highly educated people, highly successful people. Those are the ones who are leaving, young families, and this is of course, very, very disruptive to the Israeli economy. So let's now take the optimistic view and say that as a result of what happens now, there'll be a regime change inside of Iran. When there's a regime change, it will affect Hezbollah, it will affect the Houthim, it will affect the entire region, and you would have an expansion of the Abraham Accords. This is something that potentially could happen. We'll hear from Miri, I suppose, more about this in a few minutes. But if that were all to happen, that would obviously be huge for Israel. It would quiet things down. It would eventually allow you to lower the size of the army, perhaps, or your expenditures on security. I don't know how long that would take, but it could happen. But it would also have an effect on migration, because you would expect that some of those people who were leaving would not feel the need to leave, or people who left might feel the desire to come back to Israel. And that's especially true given the anti-Semitism. So given this anti-Semitism that's been growing in the United States and throughout Europe and throughout the world, that geopolitical change in the atmosphere could really change things drastically, and it could bring more Israelis back, which would be very, very large for Israel. I'm just leaving that sentence at the end. I don't know if it's going to happen, and if it does happen, it's likely to take a lot of time. So that's going to be where I'm going to stop. And thank you all very much, and I'm happy to turn it over to Miri.
Avi, thank you so, so much, and good evening to everybody. It's wonderful to be able to see so many of you. As said, I'm one of the wandering Jews, which means that on a personal level, and I say that because it's very odd, and this happened to me also in June under that last 12 days against the Iranians, the Islamic regime has capabilities, weaponry, armaments, warheads, which are different, stronger, and harsher. That doesn't mean that Hamas doesn't have capabilities, or Hezbollah or the Houthis, but it's the combo that the Islamic regime is the one that manufactures them, that reversed engineered and does things. The Islamic regime can put satellites into the sky. There are not a lot of countries who can do so. And I, as somebody who follow that, do not feel that I can safely stay in the semi not real safe room that I had in my house, and both last year and now. That means that I'm wandering. I want to give you an idea because this is actually so not Taub data driven, but it's about Israel, okay? Yesterday, when the early alert started and we got up, we looked at that and we said, okay. And then when the siren went off, we walked to the school. Takes a few minutes to walk to the school. This is a school. I live in a nice area. I want to be clear, okay? Every school has a bomb shelter, and that's a bomb shelter that were built years ago. We go into it. The bomb shelter is small and creepy, and there's a synagogue that's inside the school, so all the people from the synagogue came downstairs. Do you close the door? Don't you close the door? It becomes this whole thing. There's the upside, there's the downside. And we were in there, and there's no cell service inside the bomb shelter. So you kind of don't know what's going on, which is nice, but you don't know what's going on. And then we walk back home and we said, okay, we're going to go and stay in a place where there's the safe room. And if you saw the graphs before that Avi was showing on Saturday, I went to my sister-in-law who has a safe room, and she also has 3 kids, and they're lovely. But you go in, you're in a safe room, and you're in there for 45 minutes, for an hour. Most of the safe rooms do not have a bathroom. If you didn't put in water or food before, it's not in the safe room. You're not allowed to open the door. You're not allowed to open I mean, you're in a safe room. It's a room. It's like a bedroom. It's not much bigger than that, even smaller than that. We were in and out, but most of the time in it all day long. In the early afternoon, evening, we said, okay, we can't sleep here because it's my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, there are 3 kids. So we went to stay with my niece. Just so you know, okay, that's just me, Mary, affluent, good old Mary. I went to my niece who has a safe room and we slept there. And at the end, you saw the sirens before. A lot of those alerts happened to be where I am, and they kept going off. So did we sleep? Did we not sleep? And then it was already because we were in the safe room, certainly from 6 a.m. until 7:15. And that's everybody. Okay. It's like very intimate aspect of your family. Okay. You're in PJs, you're there. Did you pee in time? Did you not? Okay. So there you are. You're stuck. And then go out. And it was like quiet. We said, okay, we'll go home. And we went to my house and we were there from, I guess it must have been 10 a.m. until around 4 in the afternoon. And we get an alert. We have to walk to that bomb shelter. You're in the bomb shelter. You're there. There, people come with their dogs. Kids come who were playing basketball outside. They play basketball inside. I mean, I'm talking, okay, the Israelis are a little frazzled right now. And I'm an example of one because right now I'm already at my sister. Just to give you an idea, I'm the wandering Jew. And this is what happened to me in June of last year. And I apologize for that very detailed description, but I want you to think of every single Israeli right now, and I consider myself to be totally fortunate. Totally fortunate. I know people who have safe rooms that I can go stay with, okay? Not everybody has that, and so the bomb shelters, and in especially the big cities in Tel Aviv and Herzliya, a lot of the bomb shelters have they're allowed to be, sorry, the underground parking lots are bomb shelters, and people literally go and stay there. They'll go there 6, 7 p.m. with a tent, with mattresses, with sleeping bags, and they stay there. So we're a little off kilter right now, and I said all of that. Now I'm gonna share a little bit more and talk a little bit more about what's going on. And I know that you want the focus in that sense of where we are. So as somebody who follows these sort of things, I think the most important part that the Prime Minister's office put out as an office, not the Prime Minister, was of course there's a logo. Like really, that's the most important thing, but there's a logo. And what Israel is calling this operation, and this was an operation that was initiated jointly US and Israel. And I emphasize that this is not an Israeli operation. This is a joint US-Israeli operation. It was planned to a large degree together, but it's not about coordination. This is about what we call cooperation, and that's a vastly different level. We call it roaring lion, in Hebrew, shagata ari, and President Trump calls it epic fury. And I just say that because just think about the difference in the terms themselves. We're different, we're here in the Middle East. Epic fury means, and at the end, a lot of the people now listening on and in, you're in the United States, you know that there's a question and a controversy about the war, because this is not like in June, there was one act that the United States participated in the attack. It was 12 days, mainly Israel and US participation. In this case, it was from the beginning joint. And when I say joint, on yesterday morning, and the timing that was chosen had to do with that opening attack, similar to June 12th, 13th. I say 12th, 13th because in the States it was on the 12th, but in Israel it was on the 13th because it was overnight. In this case, it was in the morning. So for all of us, it was really February 28th, unless you're on the West Coast, but even that. Because when it opened up and Israel announced that they woke us all up and said, we just initiated an attack. When we initiated it, it was already with the US. And when you look at it and you remember the distances and the different things, what we're looking at is several different aspects. Element number one is that it's the continuation of June of last year. It has to do with the changes that happened inside the Islamic regime over the last 9 months since that happened, because of the outburst inside the different cities. If I go backwards just a second, that sense to show you these different cities, you can see that there's. Are we getting an alert? That wasn't an alert. Okay, it's like me who's like sitting
It
here.
was someone who that wasn't on mute, but I also thought for a minute it was, but go
Okay,
ahead.
because I'm
Yeah.
looking and I'm saying, but not okay. It's very, when you hear it, you're all going to hear it from mine because mine is on. And believe you me, it's a heart attack and we'll all live with it. especially when you get it at night. So when you look at all of these different cities and you look at the places that were attacked, these are also the different cities that in the weeks at the end of December and beginning of January, you were seeing a lot of the demonstrations against the regime and the demonstrations against, because these are big cities in Iran. It's not just about that's where the demonstrations were. But what Israel attacked in that sense, the line that you're seeing here of those that Israel has put out that we eliminated are yet again targeting the hierarchy of the military and the military Iranian Revolutionary Guard. There's like a military there, an army there, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. There are two parallel military apparatuses that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is about making sure at home that you keep the revolution, and that's going to be domestic violence. They're the ones who killed all of the people inside Iran. And that's one aspect of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And the other aspect of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is that they're the ones who are supposed to export the revolution. So they're the ones who support the proxies in their different ways. But in addition, there's an Iranian military that includes both an air force and air defense. And to be able to do what the United States and Israel did on Saturday and are continuing to do now is the first thing you do is you go make sure there's no air defense so that your planes are not shot down. That's joint, Israel and the US. And then you go and attack, but you have to do at the exact same time, you have to attack these guys. Why do you have to do it at the exact same time? Because the minute you've attacked, can I be even more exact? The second you've attacked, all of these people go underground. And we managed to, in that opening attack, and this is the same thing happened on the night of June, in the early morning of June 13th, is that we took out this time 40 top Islamic regime, different ones. I mean, you see the Minister of Defense, the Chief of the Military Bureau, the Supreme Leader's Advisor, the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the different ones that are connected with some nuclear. Some of them are the ones that replaced the ones that we killed in June of last year. And what it shows is not just operational capability, yay for us. This is about the intelligence capability that you know who all of the ones who replaced are now there. You know where they are. You can get there without their knowing, and you can attack them simultaneously. And we killed 40 simultaneously. That's 40 different attacks at the exact same time. Because the minute, again, that second that it happens, everybody else is on alert. And so the fact that into all of this, we also killed Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, a bunch of the guys that you just saw from before were in a meeting with him Saturday morning, Shabbat Boker. It's the month of Ramadan. I mean, in that sense, I'm just saying, think of the intelligence capability to know that they're there. They're in a meeting with him, where the bunker is, the operational capability to be able to get there and back. And to be very clear, all of this is done in not coordination, but cooperation between the US and Israel. That initial attack was done by us, but at the exact same time that we're doing the hierarchy of all of the Iranian regime, at the same time, taking care of the remnants of air defense, making sure that nothing else is going to attack us at that stage, and that you're able to do so. Now, when we talk about what Iran does, what Israel is attacking is the same three groups that we were attacking in June of last year. But at this stage, the Islamic regime is weaker. It's more challenging in that sense. And I say that because we've been attacking the air defense you have to constantly do to make sure that you have air superiority. And we have absolute air superiority over Iran. That's quite amazing. But the second thing is the nuclear. And I want you to all take note that until now, not a single target has been mentioned as being nuclear, which means that A, they did a pretty good job in June, and B, that that's not the focus right now. Meaning in the opening portion of this, it was about the hierarchy, similar to the last time, and especially about the missiles. And when you look at what Iran can do in response, in a moment, we're going to talk about what they have done in response. They also learned the lessons from June of last year. And when I say learn the lessons, yes, they're managing to respond. There has been such a buildup over the last month and a half that the US is going to attack it. Maybe Israel is going to attack it. Maybe the US and maybe Israel. It's not like this is something that took anybody by surprise, including not the Islamic regime of Iran, which means that they build up front the different types of targets they want to hit. So they want to hit a direct American targets. I'll talk about that in a moment because they keep claiming they're certainly trying to do so. They're attacking US bases. You can see that what are the American targets? US bases that are mainly in, I mean, it's in the Gulf countries, but also in Iraq. US forces, like deployed forces that have come in the last month or so, where there's been a buildup of forces. So that's direct American attacks, targets that they've been trying to attack over the last I say 48 hours, but it's less than that. We're not yet at 48, even though it feels like it's already been 2 years. From the beginning, and we've always known that, and Miri has always told you that, and you all know that it was clear cut that they would target in Israel. And I want you to take note that this time in the targeting in Israel, they are going after urban populations. They're hitting in Tel Aviv, in Beit Shemesh. I mean, they're looking at that. Our interceptors, Kol HaKavod, and the exact numbers. It's like it's horrible because basically, you know, we didn't intercept 3, and look at what those 3 did. So I'm just saying in that sense, you know, the ones that are going into the urban centers, why have they not attacked critical infrastructure? Why have they not done in that sense, you know, symbolic or Air Force and Intel bases? That goes to show the capabilities that they don't have, and we're continuing now to attack the missiles, the missile launchers, and those capabilities that they have. But what they always had and have not done in a real strong way is the whole aspect of what's called the energy and maritime infrastructure. But in this case, what they've done today is that Iran opened up a front that did not exist, or I should say yesterday and today, did not exist. And it's a new front. And that's, oops, I went backwards. Meaning you attack US bases. They went and attacked US bases. So from one side, you're going to say they attacked in Jordan, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar, in UAE. Okay, there are US bases there. So you go, okay, they were attacking the US bases that are in these different places. That's one way of looking at it. But that was yesterday. Today, we're today. And I got to do it on this one here because right now, at this stage, how did I manage to do a hand to myself? And I don't even know what I did. I'm like, really, mirror, but okay. Ignore my hand because I didn't know I put up a hand. I'm lowering the hand, okay? Who knows what I did there? That the Islamic regime attacked not just Israel, but Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and a little bit further, it's not in the picture, right? I mean, it's in the picture, but it's not written there, is Oman. And wonderful people, they attacked Saudi Arabia. Now, I've been following the last few months what happened in the sense in this region is like Israel attacked Iran. The US attacked Iran. We attacked, can I be rude about it? The usual targets. If they don't know how to protect themselves, kudos to us, okay? We went against the Islamic regime. We went against the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Iran yesterday responded against Israel and US bases. But today, they have attacked every single one of these countries in urban areas, hotels, the beach, UAE, a lot of what we call the infrastructure, but they're attacking and the Iranians have created, and this surprises me, okay? In that response, and to me, this has to do with Khamenei being taken out, that nobody could ask him what to do, that they had a bank of targets that they could do up front, but somebody was supposed to tell them what to do, and so they just went out and attacked. And they have right now managed to do something that nobody expected to have happen, that Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, in the last 3 months, have almost been on the verge of a war between them. You haven't heard about it because nobody cares. But suddenly they are on the same side. Saudi Arabia has pledged to protect UAE, to protect Bahrain, to protect Kuwait against Iran. And what we're talking about right now is that Saudi Arabia was actually quite involved in that different aspect. And I say that here because it says that both UAE is talking about its own air defenses. Again, I want to highlight this because we always talk about Israel, and I'm Taub Center and it's Israel. But this war from certainly today is not just Israel, it's Emirates, it's Saudi Arabia. It's not just defending it. There's this question right now that because Iran initiated attacks against that big map of all of those different countries right now, these countries, Saudi Arabia has pretty much the same weapons that Israel has. The United States of America supplies Saudi Arabia with the most advanced weaponry you can imagine. I'm talking in airplanes and in missiles and in all the different capabilities. And it's the first time that I'm looking at this and going, Iran attacks Saudi Arabia. Is Saudi Arabia going to retaliate against Iran? A little bit more about your neck of the woods. The CENTCOM, this isn't 16 minutes ago. This is around 2 hours and 16 minutes ago. But the United States Central Command put out that there have already been 3 U.S. service members that have been killed in action and 5 wounded as part of Operation Epic Fury. That's the numbers that have come out until now. That's going to be a huge issue inside the United States. President Trump started an action. I've been reading enough to see the controversy and challenge that it's having both within the Republican Party and let alone within opposition inside the United States. Nobody wants a war in the United States of America, and now you have service members that have been killed in this attack. It doesn't say here when this happened, and they haven't yet put out the names. At least CENTCOM hasn't. I don't know if in the States they've already been talking about this, but I want you also to take notice that the United States is very aware an integral part of what the Islamic regime does is psychological warfare. And that psychological warfare, which is always part of an Islamic regime that supports terror, that supports the proxies, that's part of the ideology. And that means that they've been claiming that they've killed lots of US and that they struck a US Navy boat and that they did also, and it's lies, but people believe it. I'm just putting it out there because you have to be very wary right now. I am seeing the repetition in US news of, things that come out. It's kind of like who's checking it. Let's put it this way. I hate to say it in these terms, but politics can be very impacting in that sense that if you quote what the Iranian Revolutionary Guard are saying, and you say they claim that, and you don't believe the United States when CENTCOM says something, it's a very big challenge in the psychological warfare. Last but not least is that we've also have constantly been in that sense, the don't exit until you receive an explicit guideline that the event has ended. The Israeli home front is the one, we always talk about the airplanes that went there, the intelligence that had the capability to do so, the air defense that intercept. But the little symbol that you see up on top there of the orange symbol is of the Israeli home front. And the Israeli home front are military. And they're us, and they're everywhere. And when they said that 100,000 are called up, they're not called up to fly the planes or to be in intel. A lot of them are called up because of the home front. And it's something that we need to always remember to ourselves when we talk about these different operations. I really do think that, okay, I'm going to stop sharing in that sense. I wanted to just in that sense, okay, I went over what has happened. So the last thing I'm going to say, and that's also to what Avi alluded to before in that sense is, so now what? So in the last 2 hours, okay, we have not had, I don't want to open my mouth, okay? We have not had an alert. Let me look at it for a second. Right now there's drones on the way, just for those of you out and about. I'm just looking, and that's from a few minutes ago, okay? But the alert before that was before 5 o'clock, and it's already 7:40 p.m. That's 2 hours and 40 minutes since that last alert, which was not all of Israel. So first of all, it's not over. The Islamic regime right now has put in place people to replace all of the ones who were there. I'm going to be rude and say, hopefully we know who they are. And just like we did June and we did yesterday, we can take them out again. That isn't a game, and I don't think of this as a game that you can do forever. But the lack of a hierarchy, the lack of somebody who's giving orders, the passing of Khamenei is a major event, but it doesn't mean that the Islamic regime is over. In its own way, he was not a dictator. He was the supreme leader. For the last 47 years, the Islamic regime under the supreme leader have built a very strong infrastructure military, Iranian Revolutionary Guard, just in case, and look what they did against their own people in the last 2 months, so that they're very aware of everything going on. They're not going to stand up and suddenly stop what they're doing. Having said all of that, they're also the change in regime, the change is a change in generation. think of all things in the Taub Center, one of the things I always appreciate is our focus on demography and on the difference between ages and how important early childhood could be. And on the other hand, how important it is golden age, and let alone the fact that we just put out the one about, burial. We're going to have a lot of people, and I love them, but they're going to die, and we're going to need more burial places. And I say that because inside, when we're talking right now, both about the Islamic regime and a generational change, Ali Khamenei, that Israel killed yesterday, was 84, almost 85 years old. He was the supreme leader for the last 41 years. That's a long time. He was old school. He was harsh, conservative, old school. No matter who comes after him, the guy that they're talking about right now, Larijani, is 25 years younger than him. Okay, and I'm talking about that generational type change. It's a different person. Number two is that there's the supreme leader who is a religious leader. And the person that they're talking about replacing him right now, Larijani, is not a religious person, meaning he's not from the hierarchy of the religious way that builds up in Iran. He's rather what I call a politician. He believes in the revolution, but there's a big difference. He's a practical politician. And so there's gonna be a big change no matter what right now. I don't expect this to be long if it is up to the United States and Israel. But I cannot vouch for what the new Islamic regime leaders will decide to do. And I say that because President Trump has already said that the Iranians are willing to talk. And so don't be surprised if it's over quickly. Quickly, it'll still be around this week. We're not going to feel safe for a long time, but there is that possibility that this new regime is going to say, okay, stop. We're willing to talk with you about the nuclear like we were before. They'll say it in a different way. And that means that the high intensity will end. Having said that, the change of regime, and President Trump put on the table change of regime, Prime Minister of Israel's put on change of regime, Minister of Defense did, that change of regime is not something that you can do from the outside. Today, Israel chose in the early afternoon in its air superiority over Iran, in its direct attacks in Tehran. The Israeli planes were attacking at the heart of Tehran in the afternoon today, and what they attacked, one of the targets that they attacked heavily was the Basij. The Basij are the domestic Iranian Revolutionary Guard. What can I call them? The muscle men who go against the Iranians to make sure that the regime stays. And Israel went and attacked that. So we're not killing Iranian civilians. We're not attacking Iranian civilians. We're not, because that's not the same kind of target. It's not missiles being fired at us. It's not the nuclear weapons that they're trying to develop, and it's not air defense, okay? It's something domestic. But by doing so, it's to enable and help, if possible, the Iranians, if they can. It isn't up to us to try to change this regime. But I don't expect that to be something that will suddenly happen now, but that's one of the things that it enables. I'll stop with that right here. I think that I talked way longer than I expect. Civilian casualties in Iran. The Iranians put out official numbers of around 700, but they said everything is civilian, okay? Israel only attacked military targets, but I'll stay up front. I mean, we attacked generals and other people that some of them were in the meeting with Khamenei, and then we said, we killed Khamenei, we killed his son, his daughter-in-law, okay, they were there too. So they're civilians. And what can I tell you? I don't feel bad about killing Khamenei's family who were with him in the bunker where we hit him. And I'm being very upfront Israeli right now. But we did not target any civilians. And there's one occasion right now where there's a girls' school that was hit yesterday. And approximately the Iranians have put out that 100 or 150 were killed there. And everybody from everywhere, as I said, I showed you the lies before that they put about CENTCOM and about different things they had done, is that physically it looks like one of the Iranian missiles misfired and went down on the school. They're never going to admit that. And if we're not on the ground, we're not going to be able to prove it. But I absolutely do not believe that we targeted a girls' school. Okay, if we did, it was an absolute mistake, but that's that sort of thing that I'm saying. That's the only one where there was 100 schoolgirls that were killed. And that's the only other one that has to do with civilians.
Really, thank you
Answer the
so
questions.
much. It didn't seem like you talked too much because everything you said was fascinating and important for us to understand deeply. And I'm opening it up for a few questions for Avi or for Miri. Nir, of course, is with